Okay, happy Wednesday, everyone. Happy April. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's career growth session. My name is Pilar Mejia. I have been at GitLab for 5.5 years. My day job, as I lovingly refer to it, is I manage our ecosystem distribution strategy for the US public sector team. And the reason I'm here today is because I also have the distinct privilege of being the co-founder and current lead of our Gente TMRG. And you can learn more about us in the link. But one of the things that we focus on is career growth. It's something that's come up time and time again when we get together and we discuss about how can we really support our team members.
一辈子人生里面把屁也是享受。
I may, if you wanna, reminder to stay on mute if you don't mind, y'all. Um, so you can check out exactly what that is in our issue. Feel free to add any suggestions in there, but essentially it's our quest to stay up to date on all the ways that we can grow here at GitLab. So that means figuring out what the latest resources are. What's our talent and development team putting out? What's going on with our people systems? What soft skills should we be learning? What kind of insights do our leaders have? Of course, the TMRGs and TMAGs. And then what's going on with our different teams here at GitLab? So with that being said, shout out to our sustainability team. They're responsible for this amazing Zoom background, which I promise I will link. This is a 2-for-1 session because we're going to get some leadership insights and also get to learn a little bit about what the sustainability team does here at GitLab. So housekeeping, use the notes docs if you have any questions. We've got an AMA section towards the bottom, and feel free to leverage the chat for any commenting. You can talk amongst yourselves. We love to hear what you all are thinking. So with that being said, I wanted to introduce my wonderful co-host, April. Hello, April. How are you?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here today.
Yes. So how long have you been at GitLab? Where are you based out of? Tell us everything.
Yes. So I'm based out of Phoenix, Arizona, enjoying some beautiful weather currently. I have been at GitLab around 8 months, so I still have my new-ish shoes on, getting to know all of you. And yeah, it's just been a lot of fun diving in. Thank you so much for the support and allowing our sustainability team to be here. My role specifically on the sustainability team is focused on social impact and volunteerism. So I had no intentions of coming here to promote Earth Month, but I do want to take a moment to just thank each and every one of you who has supported our Earth Month initiatives in any kind of capacity over the month of April. We still got a few days left, and it's been really exciting to primarily see how our team members are growing their climate knowledge and also tapping into their local communities and even virtual communities as well from afar. So yeah, thank you for having us. And with that, I would love to introduce Stacy Cline, as I know we've got a lot of great questions lined up. So is it okay for me to move forward with that?
Absolutely. Let's get into it. Welcome, Stacy. Thank you for making the time.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you
and
for having
before
me.
oh, sorry, I didn't give sorry. I'll start with a little formal introduction, but yes, we have Stacy Cline here, who is our Senior Director of Sustainability, and we're excited for her to talk about her career experience here at GitLab. So Stacy, with that, tell us a little bit about your role, how long you've been here, where you're based out of, and a little bit more about our work here in sustainability.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for having me. Like April mentioned, so I'm the Senior Director of Sustainability, and I've been at GitLab for about 2.5 years now. Like April, I am also based out of sunny Phoenix, Arizona. So when the weather isn't unbearably hot, I like to try and get outside as much as possible. In my free time, I enjoy hiking, golfing. I've recently taken up and I'll admit, become a bit obsessed with pickleball. And I have two kids, 3.5 and 1.5. So for those of you with kids, they keep you plenty busy.
Yes, they most definitely do. I can attest to that as well. Thank you for the background, Stacey. So for those of the folks on the call that may be unfamiliar, sustainability, can you just kind of give us your best elevator pitch on what it is that we as a department do here at the company and how we funnel up into the larger company objectives through our work as well?
Yes. So the sustainability team, some of you may be familiar, formerly the Environmental, Social, and Governance or ESG team. We report into our legal and corporate affairs department. And our job is to help drive and integrate GitLab's responsible business practices and ESG compliance. So our team has two main buckets of work. The first is around compliance and reporting. So the things that we have to do as a public company in regards to ESG related regulations, but also the things that our customers require of us. So sustainability and greenhouse gas reporting. And then things our investors require. So we do a lot of investor ratings and requests and things like that. And then the second bucket of work is around social impact. So meaning the programs and the initiatives that we create and scale around those topics that we and our stakeholders have deemed most important. So this are things like April's already mentioned, our climate action program, the steps that we take to reduce our emissions and take action against climate change. We also have our GitLab for Nonprofits program, where we provide a free license to eligible nonprofit organizations, and then GiveLab, which is our team member volunteer program. And just one thing I want to highlight is just how closely this work is tied to our customers. Sustainability, and particularly environmental sustainability, is a growing focus for our customers. So we are a vendor, and our emissions contribute to our customers' emissions. So the actions that we take to make our operations and product more sustainable impacts our customers' ability to achieve their goals. So a lot of our work is driven from those customer requests and expectations.
That is so awesome and such a good point. I was snooping around in Slack and checking out the sustainability channel, and absolutely, you see folks asking about it on behalf of their customers all the time. So, love seeing that it's something that's top of mind. Um, my question for you, Stacy, my first question is, I am curious to know how you came to be here at GitLab. Kind of what was that career journey like that brought you here to the wonderful virtual walls of where we are now, and how have you grown your career while at GitLab?
Yeah. So I have always worked in the social impact space, but in different capacities. So I started my career working with nonprofits as a public relations consultant. So I worked with several local and national nonprofits and helped them with things like their fundraising campaigns, marketing campaigns, and things like that. And that's where I really found my passion for social impact. And then prior to GitLab, I spent 10 years at GoDaddy, where I built the corporate social responsibility and sustainability program from scratch. So this included everything from a volunteer and matching program, strategic relationships with nonprofits, where we donated millions of dollars every year, large scale social impact signature programs, and then I developed the ESG reporting and compliance function. And what I learned during that time is that I really enjoyed that building phase of seeing this new challenge, this new opportunity, and creating it from scratch. And so that's what brought me to GitLab. Robin, our chief legal officer, she saw the opportunity. She saw that there was this increase in customer requests related to sustainability, as well as these new regulations that were popping up. And she knew it was time that the company have a sustainability function. So I joined to start that function. And so it's been a really busy 2.5 years. I started as an individual contributor. There was no programs. I had no budget. So have been able to grow a lot with my career and my skills, as well as grown the function.
That's awesome. I love a good project, right? So I didn't realize you were kind of like day one. You are the origin story of the sustainability team here at GitLab. That's awesome.
Yes, but I will say, there's so many passionate people here at GitLab. So before I came on, there was already work happening. It was just happening in pockets, and it was informal, and people taking time out of their own personal time to help do things like find ways to reduce our emissions or to get people together to volunteer. So this work was happening. So I was able to come in and at least help formalize some of that.
That's awesome. And that's actually the perfect segue into the next question. So the work, was already to some extent happening here at GitLab. Obviously that shows that this work is not limited to just the sustainability teams department. So can you talk a little bit about how you work cross-functionally across the whole business? And maybe what are some of the best practices from working cross-functionally that you've learned?
Sure. So most of my job is dependent on working cross-functionally. So just within environmental, social, and governance, like those are big categories, they're big topics, and there's a lot of things that fall underneath those buckets, like responsible product development, business ethics, talent, and DIB, where we have to report on these things as a sustainability function. Our stakeholders are asking us to do these things, but my team doesn't own that work. So we need to have really great relationships with all of these other functions. So we can share, here's what we're being asked, here's what we should be reporting on, here are some of the best practices, and building those relationships. So that's very important. I think I've learned a lot with building cross-functional relationships, for a couple best practices. I think the one I come back to is just really making sure that I have that understanding that everyone has a different level of knowledge around topics and different priorities. And you really have to look at every relationship individually. So even if we have the same goal, so for us here at GitLab right now, we have our 3 objectives. We should all be working towards these same objectives and these goals. But the approach and the thinking that someone in finance is taking versus someone in marketing, they're going to be different. So it's really important to take the time to level set, align on expectations, and just understand where everyone's at in their journey. And going into that a little bit, I think another best practice is just being intentional about the types of relationships that we build, especially in a remote company. It can be very easy to slip into a transactional mode, right? I have this deadline. I need this. I need you to do this. And you have those transactional relationships. But what I like to try and do is take a step back and be what I say is intentionally human. So taking the time to have casual conversations, learning about other people, their goals, their lives, because this in turn is going to build trust and it's going to deepen collaboration.
So much of what you said there resonates with me, Stacy, because you're right. We're an all remote company. We don't have the opportunity to bump into each other at the water cooler and maybe share some insights. And I really love your point about understanding the different backgrounds, essentially, right? I sometimes lovingly call it like the baggage. Where are you coming from? What are you bringing with you? Because if I understand that, I'm going to be able to speak to you in a language that might resonate a little bit more, right? And you're right, finance and marketing, I do some cross-functional work myself. I have to like context switch a little bit, or sales, so it is a fun balance. So thank you so much for calling all that out. Could you give me like an example of how you intentionally make those spaces, since we're not, in the same building?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's starting when you have conversations with people, starting those conversations off with personal questions, like getting to know people a little bit more, I think is an easy way to do that. Engaging in different Slack channels, whether they're location specific or whatever your interests are, engaging in those and just learning about other people is a great way to do that. And then, TMRGs, that's another great way that you can learn about other people and get to know people you wouldn't normally interact with and have some more casual conversations.
Such a good call out on Slack. Y'all, if you haven't done some Slack Googling, as I lovingly refer to it, check it out. Like if you're interested in music, there's a Slack channel for that. If you're interested in parenting, we've got a Slack channel for that. If you're interested in talking in all caps because you're frustrated or just need yes, Diana's ahead of me, she knows. There's an all caps channel, so get out there and vent if you need to. So such a good call out, April. All right, my next question, because we do have more questions for you. How do you continually look for growth opportunities here at GitLab? And do you have any tips on how maybe we could start doing that as well?
Yeah, it's a little bit of what I had talked about. It's making those connections inside and outside of the company is super important. I think it's really easy for us to get stuck in our silos with our day-to-day work, but taking the time to get to know other people, understanding other functions, it's all very beneficial. Similar to like the Slack channels and things, it's coffee chats, right? For me, at least, when I'm overwhelmed and I'm really busy, the first thing to go are coffee chats. I'm like, I don't have time for this. Like, I can do this later. And I have to really stop and pause because we have to actually take time to do those things getting to know people across the business. I've had so many coffee chats with people that I would not have come in contact with, I would not have interacted with my job, where I learned so much about them. I learned about new opportunities to collaborate. So taking that time, carving it out is important. Um, I also had the benefit of being able to shadow for both the CEO and the CFO shadow programs. And they were both great in their own ways to understand more on the business operation side of things, and understanding those conversations. Those opportunities are obviously a little bit more limited now. But what I found is just having one-on-ones with people around the company can be just as effective. And our leaders are all very approachable and are open to those types of conversations. And then, what I said before too, engaging in other types of activities. So like TMRGs, right? The whole purpose is to bring together diverse perspectives. So that's great. And then a shameless plug for our volunteer program. Volunteerism in and of itself is a skills building opportunity. So not only can you build your skills, you can also get like management skills and things, managing teams if you don't manage teams in your day job. And it's just an opportunity to get to know other people that you wouldn't interact with, learn about other opportunities that exist at the company.
That's awesome. Do we have a link for the volunteer program? I'm woefully undereducated on that one.
I can drop it in the chat in just a moment, actually.
Thank you, April.
Yes, we often refer to that as our GitLab program for reference. So yeah, I will drop a link to the handbook page. And Stacy, you've talked about the shadows that you've done, and you've also talked about your experience both here at GitLab and prior experience of building programs from the ground up. I think both of that in and of itself shows success. One of the questions that I have is, maybe even through some of the shadow programs, what is the best career advice that you have gotten?
It's a great question. I can't pinpoint like one specific piece of advice. I think it's more of a theme, and that theme is around like not waiting for someone to give you an opportunity. Like you are your best advocate. Um, you shouldn't assume that you're going to get that promotion or that job or that recognition because you did this thing. Like you have to push for it. You have to advocate for yourself. And also, equally as important, you need to find the people who are going to advocate for you, especially if you're not in the room. I was just listening to this podcast actually yesterday about agents and things. And when you think about promotions and talent and whatnot, so many of those conversations are happening when you're not in the room. And so you need to make sure that you've teed yourself up in the best way. You're advocating for yourself, and that you have the people in the room who are going to be advocating for you. Throughout my career, I've created my own role several times. I didn't wait for someone to ask me to do it. I saw the need, I saw the opportunity, and I made the case for it. And I think that's just important. If you see something, you should talk about it. You should push for it.
I love that. And that's a great call out. And I think sometimes I know I have a hard time with this. You are your best advocate. And sometimes it can be kind of hard to wrap your head around this and figure out how to best advocate for yourself, how to brand yourself, if you will. So that's definitely a great reminder for all of us to keep an eye on how we are presenting ourselves and speaking up for ourselves. Because
Yeah, and it can be challenging. It's hard to go into a room and pat yourself on the back and talk about your accomplishments. Like it's not a natural tendency. And so it's something I think we all just have to work at and be proud of our accomplishments and be able to articulate them and articulate how that helps the business achieve larger objectives.
And that's a great point as well, right? Always tying it back to the main objectives. You called it out earlier, the three, our CEO memo that we've all got, that we've all kind of are driving towards the same goals. So yeah, making sure you understand how you fit into that is super important.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, I don't know about you, but I sometimes learn more from my mistakes than from my wins. Is there anything that comes to mind for you, Stacy, like a career mistake that you've made that you've learned the absolute most from?
Yes. There is one example, one mistake I think that always comes to mind. And not one I'm obviously particularly proud of, but I think generally it's the problem was getting caught in a fixed mindset. So I had mentioned in a previous role, there were a lot of different programs and things that I created. There was this program that I created that we would go into low income and under resourced communities and we would help individuals start and grow their own small businesses. And I'd run this program for a couple years, had a lot of success in different cities. And it was like I was having the pressure, like scale, scale, scale. And so my brain, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to replicate this model. I'm going to make it plug and play. I'm going to drop it into these cities. We're going to have this great impact. Um, and what I failed to do was really understand every city, every person I was working with was different. They're all different scenarios. And so this particular community it was different. It was very low income. It was in the US, but English was not the primary language that was spoken there. It was all brick and mortar small businesses. They relied really heavily on foot traffic. And what was happening was that this city was expanding the light rail along the street that all of these businesses were on, which was going to effectively close their street down from foot traffic for years. So I came in with my program, like trying to be a hero. Here, we're going to give you all grants. We are going to get you set up as an online business. We're going to give you access to mentors, to coaches, to free products. We're going to do all of these things to transition your business. And what I failed to do was actually talk to them first and understand what they needed. Because what they needed in that moment was not someone coming in and telling them that they had to do everything different. And what they were doing wasn't going to work, and everything that they knew needed to change. They needed something different. And so a typical program would take about 6 months to stand up, whereas this one failed on the first go. Eventually, it took about 3 times that length to actually stand up. And it costs a lot more money. And that's because I failed on that early engagement. I failed to approach each city, each program, each stakeholder with this growth mindset. And I think that same concept applies with relationship building, right? Like you have to start by understanding where everyone is at, what their priorities are, and approaching each situation as its own unique case and approaching it with that growth mindset.
That ties so nicely into your earlier comments about just understanding who you're talking to and who you're working with to make sure you have success. And I just have to compliment you on how comfortable you sound when you say, I failed, because that is something that gives me the heebie-jeebies. And I think a lot of times it's a disservice. Like we should be able to go out there and fail because that's how we learn.
Yeah. And I think when you fail, it's so important to own that outcome, own it, understand what you did, take the time to learn from it and communicate about that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I want to make sure we get to our AMA. So I see we have the first question in here. Daniel Murphy, would you like to verbalize your question? I'm happy to do so if you're unavailable.
Sure. Thank you, Pilar. I'll definitely verbalize, and great job hosting. Thank you so much, Stacy. This is such a great opportunity to learn more on your story. And as someone who gets to work cross-functionally with you and your team, it was nice to hear more about your journey. I do have a question since you brought up being a parent to young children. How do you balance the building towards the career growth and doing all these amazing opportunities you're talking about with being that parent caregiver role? Because I don't know how to, I'm trying to keep up with it right now and I'm so tired. So I don't know if you have any tips or advice on what to do in that end.
Yes, I feel you. I am tired as well. I will say I haven't always been consistent with it, especially um, now I feel like now that my youngest is 1.5, I'm able to prioritize a little bit more of my time towards this, but it can be a challenge. I try really hard to carve out time every week. So usually on Fridays, I block out an hour or two that I dedicate towards different career growth. So whether that's listening to a podcast that's been on my list, it's having a conversation with somebody I know I want to talk to, it's reading an article, something like that I flag in my inbox that I know I want to look at, taking the actual time, carving it out to then go and do that. It's hard. And I will say with other things too, it's finding opportunities where I can engage my family. So April and I were actually just having this conversation. It was Earth Day yesterday. And we were doing this Earth Day cleanup event. And it's like, well, this is a chance where we could bring our kids, right? Like our kids can participate in this. So we're also teaching them about the importance of these things as well, but trying to marry some of these things when we can and just making it as intentional as possible to carve out that time.
Thanks. I appreciate the advice.
Thanks so much for the question, Daniel. April, did you want to verbalize your question? I saw that you noted here. It's a
Sure,
great
yeah,
one.
I'll give it a second in case anyone has anything else. But while Stacy was chatting, something else came to mind. So one of the things that I actually have noticed about you, Stacy, is, you know, we're talking about cross-functionality here, but you also do this externally. And I've seen how those relationships that you've built with peers, just kind of doing like benchmarking and learning about what are some of the trends in the space, have yielded in program and company success, you know, here at GitLab. So are you willing to kind of talk about how you not only brand yourself, but like make those relationships and make the time for them externally and then translate it to, okay, how can this be applied for success with our company?
Yeah, I think the external relationships are equally as important as the internal ones because you're just gathering different perspectives and you're learning from people who are at all different stages of their careers as well. So I do a lot of engagement on LinkedIn with peer groups. So I find different peer groups who are in my field at different levels and engage with them there. There's different membership groups that I'm a part of where I seek out individuals and can learn from them and also share things that I've learned too. And then participating in different mentorship programs too, one as a mentor, but then also as a mentee, and taking time to find those relationships because it helps so much with career growth, but then also when it's specific to your field, learning things that you can come back and then apply to the company.
That's a great call out. Lots of great external resources for us to plug into. Thank you for that, Stacy. Craig, if you're on, would you like to verbalize your question?
Yeah, and I get to work with Stacy on a regular basis. So sorry, Stacy, for asking a question here, but what has changed for you in your role as the company has continued to grow and as your team has expanded? Just how do you spend your time differently now than you did when you first joined the company?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think my role it's much more strategic now than it was in the beginning, especially when I came on as an individual contributor. It was standing up the foundational elements of a program. It was like getting the data. It was a lot of in the weeds type of work. Now that we have a team, that we have the actual foundational elements in those programs here, the time is spent being much more strategic, really understanding how our work ties in and helps us meet our company objectives, the conversations and the people that we need to work with from that level. And it's also transitioned a lot more on the external side too, like talking directly with customers, talking directly with our shareholders to understand what their expectations are and then applying those to our work. So it's gotten quite a bit more broad. But then just generally we have a lot more programs and things now. So it's exciting. We've built a ton.
Amazing. Thanks.
Thank you so much for the question, Craig. I know we are technically over our short meeting time, so thank you everyone for hanging in there with us. Any last questions, thoughts before I do my little wrap up? Going once, going twice. Okay, well, thank you so much again, Stacy. Thank you, April, for the opportunity to learn from both of you. For those of you that are interested in more career growth, we're going to be teaming with the API TMRG next month because it is API Heritage Month. So stay tuned for that information. You can check out our career growth playlist. It's linked right there in the notes doc. And if you ever want to have anything magically added to your calendar, you've got the Gente Google group there as well. And we have a suggestion box. If you have a topic, if you have someone that you'd like us to talk to, please let us know. We want to make sure this is a good use of everyone's time and you all are getting the resources you need. So with that being said, thank you again for making the time, everyone. Have an incredible rest of your day. Be sure to look out for each other, and I'll see you around the virtual office. Take care, team.
Thank you.